And hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Expose the Manosphere. I haven't done these in a while, so it's probably the first time some of you guys saw my face in a while. And I am here with a person that is really well known on YouTube and has been in the Manosphere since 1999, dating coach and book author Alan Roger Currie. And actually, I look really forward to his interview. So, Al, how are you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I appreciate it. So I know there's actually I think viewership that's going to be pretty large for this. So I'll just jump straight into the interview, and then we have the conversation kind of just flow as it goes. Okay. So yeah, my first question, lighthearted opener. Can you tell the audience about yourself for those who are unfamiliar with your work? I know you're from Gary, Indiana, a city I've been through, and I'm familiar with the history and struggles. What was it like growing up there, and what did your parents do?
I was born and raised in Gary, Indiana. Among Black folk, that city is probably most known for being the hometown of Michael Jackson and the entire Jackson family. Matter of fact, not too long ago, I took my father-in-law. It's interesting calling him my father-in-law because he's like 8 years younger than me. But I took him and my brother-in-law to see the house that the Jacksons grew up in. And like everybody, they're just amazed because it's a really small house. Mm-hmm. And it's like nobody can picture two parents and 9 children growing up in that small house. It looks like a house that no more than 5 people could have grown up in. But I'm was called a late baby boomer, born in March of 1963. And growing up in Gary, Indiana was interesting because when I was younger, in all of the 60s and most of the 70s, Gary was the second highest per capita Black people of any city in the nation next to Detroit. So all I saw was Black people. And it made things interesting as I got older because, see, I wasn't used to seeing, for lack of a better way of putting it, white people dominating Black people. I was used to seeing Black doctors, Black politicians, Black school teachers, Black principals, all that. So it kind of, when I was real young, you could say it kind of gave me a misleading interpretation of what I was going to experience later because I saw so many Black people running shit. Can I curse on your show?
Yeah, it's okay. I tell people kind of tone it down, but I understand.
Okay, I'll try to keep things PG-13. But yeah. So it was interesting growing up. My father, he was one of the first 2 African-American graduates of the Indiana University, where you're currently attending. He's known down there for being one of the first two graduates of the optometry program. Mm-hmm. And my father was very involved in community activities, civic activities. So my brother and I kind of grew up with a large shadow cast upon us because, everywhere we went, people would say, "Oh, you're Dr. Clarence Currie's son. Oh, you're Dr. Clarence Currie's son." My father had a reputation for being incredibly intelligent. Most people who knew him, that's the number one compliment they would always give. They say, "Oh man, your father, man, that's one of the smartest men I've ever met in my life." And they rarely said one of the smartest Black men. They would say that's one of the smartest men I've ever met in my life. Matter of fact, one guy of note, God, I'm forgetting his last name. First name Bernard. He used to be the superintendent of schools in Philadelphia, and he's from Gary. And he wrote a book about his experiences being the superintendent in Philadelphia. And in one of his chapters, he actually mentions my father. And that was the compliment he gave my father in his book. He said, Clarence Currie was one of the most intelligent men I've ever encountered in my entire life. And my mother was a school teacher. And so in my school years, I lived about half of my life in what you could call the central part of Gary, the regular part of Gary. Then there's, you take this one little highway for a few minutes, and it's kind of almost detached from the rest of Gary. And it's the most affluent neighborhood of Gary on the northeast side of Gary called Miller Beach.
Oh, okay.
Indiana. That's where I lived the end of my 6th grade year until the time I graduated from high school. And speaking of race, that was interesting because Miller Beach had the highest percentage of Caucasian people in Gary. And so that was my first time being in school with white people and, you know, interacting with them and dealing with that dynamic. And it was a lot different than it is now. I mean, I'm generalizing, of course, but I would say the younger generation of blacks and whites, depending on where they live, get along much better than, like, you're talking about the 70s, man. There was still tension there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, a lot of my fellow black students did not get along with my fellow white students. Although I never personally necessarily had problems with them. Anyway, from there I went on to Indiana University, pledged the fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi. I left. I didn't finish. I wasn't what's known as a traditional student, because what happened was I took this acting class, and I ended up getting voted the best actor in my class, and my teacher just raved about it. She said, "Alan, it would be a crime if you don't pursue a professional acting career. I think you have the talent, like, to be the next Denzel Washington or something." And so I quit school and started pursuing a career as an actor, which my mother and father hated because they're all about education. I started doing off Broadway stage plays, some local, regional, and even a couple of national TV commercials. I did some print modeling. I did stand-up comedy for about a year, won a citywide contest in Chicago. Then I went back to school, picked up my degree in economics with a minor in theater and drama and psychology. And then I went right into graduate business school. I did 1 year of the Kelley School of Business in Bloomington. I didn't really care for it, honestly. I won't go into long detail. I mean, it just wasn't my cup of tea. And that summer after my first year, I got an internship at New Line Cinema, the movie feature film production company in Beverly Hills. And once I went out for that internship, I just stayed out in LA. First, I was pursuing a career as a studio executive. I wanted to be a studio executive who basically decides whether to green light a script or not. Then I went on the opposite end of that. I started pursuing a career as a screenwriter, and I pitched some scripts to Hollywood executives, and I never had no big buy. And then, so it's interesting, when I came back home, my father had suffered a stroke and a heart attack. My mother was falling apart. So I left LA in late September, early October of 2000, came back to the Midwest. And I had already had my book out at this point. The first ebook version of Mo 1, Let the Women Know What You're Really Thinking. And that's when my brother started hammering home to me to do this full time, because I was looking for a home-based business so I could stay close to my mom. You know, I had to go out, do a 9-to-5 job. And my brother, you know, from the time I came to the Midwest, he said, dude, and that was before it was popular to be some kind of like dating coach or whatever.
Yeah.
My older brother, he was like, man, you on to something with this Mo 1 book. You need to pursue this. And I would kind of brush it off because career-wise, my main focus was still entertainment. So I would almost be like, yeah, whatever. And then you could say the turning point was when Hitch came out in 2005.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then my brother, not only my brother, but a lot of my close friends, they would be like, Alan, that's you, bro. You're like the real life Hitch, man. Because I was already doing dating coaching type stuff. You know, guys would come. It's just that I just wasn't really charging for it, but I was already doing it, and so that's when I decided, well, then I started doing it part time. I still wasn't doing it full time, even in 2005, 2006. I was doing it part time. My last 9 to 5 job, I used to work as a program coordinator for a mentoring program for young Black men and young Hispanic men that usually came from underprivileged families, single mom homes, to help them get their degree at a satellite campus of Indiana University called Indiana University Northwest.
Oh yeah, Gary. Yep.
Yeah. And I worked there for about 4.5 years. And actually, while I was working there, I got invited to teach a class based on my books. So I have a little claim to fame in the Indiana University system. The woman who hired me told me I was the first man hired to teach a class related to dating and relationships and human sexuality that was not in possession of either a master's degree or a PhD. So that's kind of a little minor note of claim to fame within the Indiana University system. And then from there, yeah, it's, I hosted a show on Blog Talk Radio called Upfront and Straightforward for 9 years, from June of 2007 to June of 2016. I'd say 3/4 of my time on Blog Talk Radio, I had actually the highest rated, the most listened to podcast show related to dating and relationships advice. And I interviewed a lot of people, a lot of noteworthy book authors, well-respected book authors in the field of dating and relationships advice. I interviewed some Hollywood types, Hollywood actresses, actors. The show was pretty well known among a lot of people. And then I came to YouTube in April, the first week of April in 2017, and it's been interesting. It's been YouTube has been.
Okay, well, before we go to the second question, I do want to thank the super chats, because in the past I've been really bad at that. So shout out to BB for the $21 euro. I know where she's at, based in Europe, and the pimp name slipped back for the $5 super chat. I appreciate that too. I do want to go into let's jump. Oh yeah, and Ryan Adams for a $5 super chat. I also appreciate that as well. I do want to go to question 2. So you had an interesting journey in the Manosphere, beginning in the early 2000s. But what are your current thoughts about the Manosphere as it evolved roughly in the last 20 years?
Yeah, it's evolved quite a bit. Because I'm generally considered by many to be one of the actual early pioneers of the Manosphere. Well, I say specifically in the dating advice sector. See, there's different sectors of the Manosphere, or at least it's supposed to be. Now you could argue maybe not so much. But the Manosphere didn't just cover just one thing, one topic, or one subject. You had different subsectors in the Manosphere. And dating advice for single heterosexual men was just one sector. You had other sectors such as men who were married, who might be going through some rough spots in their marriage looking for advice. Guys who were going through a tough divorce and they were looking for wisdom how to get through that divorce. Guys that were having problems with their children, one or more of their children, and looking for advice on how to be a better parent. Guys who were at a crossroads in their career and looking for career advice and financial management. So there was a number of different subsectors in the Manosphere. Some would argue that there still is to a large degree, but so Manosphere was never about just one thing. Like some people argue the Manosphere started out being only about pickup artists and the advice that they offered. That's not true. They were probably the most dominant subsector of the Manosphere, but they weren't the only one.
Yeah, like men's rights activists. I know that.
Yeah, exactly. So now, speaking of pickup artists and dating advice, again, within that subsector, I would say I was arguably the most well-known Black male in that sector. I start posting on various message boards, discussion forums, and blogs back in summer of 1999, because I came out with my first ebook version of Mode 1 in May of 1999, like right before Memorial Day of 1999. And then probably the single biggest platform that I began getting a lot of exposure on, there used to be a very popular message board called askman.com.
Oh, I think I remember that.
Yeah, it was, for a few years, it was the most visited message board on the internet related to dating and relationships discussions. They had something like 1 million visitors, unique visitors a month. And I got banned from there 7 times about. Now, see, here's what's interesting. In the last few years, most of my haters and critics, pretty much all of them, have been men, other men. AskMan.com was probably one of the few platforms where I had just as many, if not more, female haters and critics than men. Because I used to call out women. If anybody's read my book, they'll know about, I have these 5 archetypes of women, and one of them is what I call manipulative time wasters, which is what my book, The Possibility of Sex, centers around, and more recently, No Free Attention. And even back in the early to mid 2000s, I used to call out those type of women on AskMan.com, and the women hated it. They hated it. But I would tell these guys basically that just because a woman exhibits behavior towards you that's friendly or even flirtatious doesn't mean she wants to have sex with you. She's just looking for flattering attention, entertaining conversation, and possible, free meals and financial favors. And women didn't like me calling them out on that. So they would talk to the moderators. They say, ban that Alan Roger Currie. He's an asshole. He's a jerk. So then what happened? Again, I said the pickup artists were real dominant early on. Then a lot of guys realized they were being swindled by many of these guys who were essentially grifters, snake oil salesmen, scam artists. And then that led to the birth of a popular message board called PUA Hate. So then you had a large group of guys coming out the woodworks hating on PUAs. And because they would spend like at minimum $750 to $1,000 and some as much as $5,000. And when they would ask for their money back, some of the PUAs wouldn't give any refunds. And most of them would only give partial refunds. Like they might give them like a 75, 80% refund, but that meant they still were keeping 20 to 25% of that person's money, which allowed them to still make a living. And so, yeah, PUA Hate, it was thriving for a while up until Elliot Rodger, one of his members, Elliot Rodger, went out and killed people. And then the FBI was like, oh, you got to shut this down. So, yeah, you saw the people who first loved PUAs. Then the second iteration of the Manosphere was a lot of guys hating on PUAs. Then, similar to that, you had MGTOW starting to come out the woodworks, guys who called themselves MGTOW. And basically, and it related to this subject tonight, the main subject, a lot of MGTOW guys were saying basically F marriage. Marriage is not beneficial to men. No man should get married. Some guys in the MGTOW ranks were suggesting that men should become monks, voluntarily celibate monks indefinitely. And then on the minimum end, guys were like, you should only interact with women just for a few episodes of casual sex, but nothing long-term and nothing serious, definitely not marriage. And then you had the red pill gurus that started emerging, like your Rolos and guys of that ilk. And yeah, so it's interesting to see, today, guys who are significantly younger than me talking about different things. Some things I agree with, some things I don't. And yeah, it's definitely so. Yeah, I'm one who can say I've had a close view of the manosphere and how it's evolved for over 20 years.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. And so that does lead me to question 3. So, yeah, I read a press release, Associated Press you had from August 2019, where you publicly disassociate yourself from the manosphere because the mainstream media views the group as nothing but sexually frustrated incels and bitter women-hating misogynists. Do you think the perception of the manosphere can ever be viewed differently than how the mainstream media views it?
Good question. I say mostly no. Small part of me would say possibly. I mean, you got to realize, I think most people do realize, you a James Bond fan?
Never got into it.
Never got into it.
I've seen the films. I'm like, eh.
Well, there was one installment of James Bond where the criminal was a media mogul. Some people say he was loosely fancied after Rupert Murdoch of Fox fame. And he has a line in the movie where he says, most people think the president of the United States or other members of the United States government or governments of even other countries are the most powerful and influential men on earth. He said, no. He said, I'm paraphrasing somewhat, but he said, the media runs the world. We shape the narrative of the world. And in the movie, he was trying to create a war between the US and Russia just so he can do media coverage on it and earn money. And mainstream media is always trying to dictate certain narratives, whether that's beneficial to society or even possibly detrimental. Anyway, all that to say that related to that press release that I had where I said dating coach Alan Roger Currie disassociates himself from the manosphere. Now, a lot of people at the time, both from the white manosphere or worldwide manosphere, as well as the black manosphere, thought it had something to do with one or more of my beefs with other manosphere personalities, other YouTube content creators. No, it had to do with the fact that the Joker was going to come out around that time.
Oh, yeah.
With Joaquin Phoenix. And I don't know if you remember, but he actually walked out of a press interview because they kept asking him questions about incels, the manosphere, misogynists. And he wasn't, as an actor, he wasn't really familiar with the manosphere and everything associated with it. And he was like, why do people keep asking me these questions? But a lot of people in mainstream media, they looked at his character of the Joker more so than, say, Heath Ledger's character of the Joker. They looked at Joaquin Phoenix's character, the Joker, as being a fictional representation of both an incel and a bitter misogynist, and somebody who would fit into the manosphere. And there was all these articles being written about the manosphere and incels and misogynists in association with the premiere of the Joker. And that's what made me say, okay, if the mainstream media is going to keep viewing the manosphere as only consisting of sexually frustrated incels and bitter, angry, woman-hating misogynists, I don't want my brand associated with that. I don't want my brand associated with that. So that's why I released that press release saying I don't want to, even though since then, honestly, I've had at least one foot still in the manosphere, and everybody knows that. But from a mainstream media perspective, no, I didn't want my brand being associated with the negativity. Now, to the other part of your question, can the manosphere, both the worldwide manosphere, or what some call the white manosphere, and the black manosphere, break free or somehow neutralize or diminish that impression? No, because I think the mainstream media wants that narrative to continue, and they have the power and influence to make it continue. And sadly, and this probably relates to some of your criticism on video, there's a lot of guys in both aspects of the manosphere, both the worldwide or white manosphere as well as the black manosphere, that almost feed into and validate a lot of their stereotypes and criticisms of the manosphere. So there's a lot of people that don't help the cause.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's a good point. I was going to wonder. You talk about. So, did many of the other major media personalities in the Manosphere criticize you or hate on you because of the press release, or did they say anything?
I had a few. I remember O'Shea Duke Jackson, and that was shortly after me and him kind of split because we used to be real cool, and we split. I have a lot of respect for him to this day, though. I don't have any animosity towards O'Shea. He does his thing, but at that time, I remember him doing a video where he just simply was like, "Why does Alan Roger Currie need to release a press release announcing that he's disassociating himself from the Black Manosphere? Just do it. Don't make no big announcement. Just do it. If you want to leave, just leave. Don't, go on CNN and announce that you leave and just leave." And,
like LeBron James, all right.
But other than that, no, nobody I can remember said anything. Well, I have had different people off and on since then, even to this day. Like sometimes I've been over this YouTuber's Bernard Riley's channel.
Mm-hmm.
Every now and then somebody will say in the chat room, one of his live streams, "Hey, I say, why are you here, man? I thought you disassociated yourself from the Manosphere, man. Why are you here, man? Why are you here?" So,
Oh, okay. Go to the next question first. Well, yeah, thanks for the $9.99 super chat. The Queen of the Soul, I'm not sure how you pronounce that.
Okay, I got a question.
Yes.
I'm ignorant, possibly, to a lot of this super chat stuff.
Oh, okay.
Why do people send say $9.99 instead of $10? I don't get that.
I hope somebody in the live chat can tell me. I don't know. I've always whenever I donate, I just do $5, just something flat. I don't know.
Yeah, because I see a lot of people do that. They'll submit $4.99 instead of $5, $9.99 instead of $10, $19.99 instead of $20. I don't know. I'm just curious.
I'm appreciate it's a donation, so I appreciate it no matter what.
No,
interesting observation. So yeah, one question before we jump straight into the marriage question. So yeah, I saw you in the live chat of one of my last premieres. The red pill community and Manosphere, is it beneficial or productive for men? Of course, I got a lot of I had some interesting response to 21 Studios and other people. That's when you suggested this interview first came forward. But what did you agree with in the video, and were there anything that you disagreed with in that particular video?
Well, I agree with probably 90% of it.
Mm-hmm. Which is fair. I don't expect anybody to agree with everything. I would hope not. That'd be kind of weird.
Yeah, again, the biggest thing was your emphasis on the high number of, con artists / types. And that's the single biggest criticism of yours that I definitely agree with. I don't like the idea of guys trying to monetize other man's pain and frustration.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that. I mean, my thing is, if you want to vent about women, your frustrations with dealing with the opposite gender, you should feel free to do that. But if you're doing it under the guise of, yeah, man, fellas, let's talk about how messed up women are. By the way, my cash pal is this, and my PayPal is this, and and this and that, and then it's like, okay, dude, what are you really doing? What are you really doing? Because see, there's some guys in this space that if you examine their personal lives, they really don't have that much hatred towards women, but they know a lot of other guys do, and they look for ways to monetize that. I did a whole video on that on my channel. I don't like that, and I'm openly about my criticism of it. So anyway, well, I don't want to get into a digression, but going back to your video, oh, you definitely said something else, man. When you talked about people, essentially, I forget how you put it, but I'll put it in my lane. You talked about how a lot of guys just steal other people's talking points and then repeat them ad nauseum.
Yeah.
Everybody know that's my big thing. I'm probably arguably the most known person in the Black Manosphere, Black YouTube, for criticizing people for stealing my talking points. Because a lot of people have this attitude that once anybody introduces something say a set of talking points, it's no longer theirs, it's the Manosphere's. So like, for example, with me, a lot of people feel like, well, Alan, once you introduce a lot of your terminology, a lot of your concepts, a lot of your philosophies into the Manosphere space, it's no longer Alan Roger Currie stuff. It's the Manosphere stuff. No, I don't roll like that. I'm a book author, man. No book author rolls like that. You can't just be quoting stuff from my books and pretending like it's yours. So that's a big thing with me. So anyway, that was another point you made in that video. I agree. I'll highlight the one small thing. I didn't know how to read your number 3 when you said there's too much emphasis on sex.
Oh, so how I phrased it, I saw somebody repeat it, but they missed. So I said it's the idea that male betterment revolves around like sex and dating. Now that was one of the criticism I have. Then when it comes to like the self-improvement for men, it kind of all revolves around like sex and dating.
Okay. If you put it like that, I don't know if I necessarily disagree. But when I first watched the video, it sounded like you say, man, too many guys, because I've been criticized by some people in that regard. My haters agree. They say, ARC, man, all you talk about is the pursuit of punani, man. You never talk about like improving your education or improving your career or, getting in better shape. You just talk about the pursuit of punani. Number one, that's not 100% true, but for argument's sake, if it was true, I'm a dating coach. What do you expect me to talk about? How to fix your engine in your car? I'm a damn dating coach. So yeah, I take offense that in the beginning, somebody said in the beginning there weren't that many black dating coaches.
Coaches in
yeah, well, shoot. Before me, there was none. I literally am the first black male dating coach in the entire Manosphere. I mean, I'm not talking about specifically on YouTube, but just as we talked about earlier, the formation of the Manosphere in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was nobody else calling themselves other black person calling himself a dating coach. The closest would be Tariq Nasheed, but he didn't use the term dating coach. He called himself a game advisor. He came a year after me, because I came around 1999. I think Tariq came around 2000, and then Ron Wills came around 2001. But Ron Wills wasn't well known in the white manosphere, but he was well known by a certain percentage of black people. Then everybody else came after that.
Oh, okay. Oh, so that's kind of good. Now we can jump into the topic of this live stream about the marriage. So yeah, it leads to a question. You have been with one woman for 2 years, and you have been married to her since mid-July of last year, and I believe you have a son, if I'm correct.
Yes.
Has this lifestyle caused you to change your view of the red pill community and the manosphere? Totally different. So I would argue that you are now purple pill instead of red pill or black pill. I mean, do you agree with that assessment? I would say there's too many pills in this space, but
yeah, somebody just sent me a link to the video where somebody talking about the maroon pill. I'm like, okay,
the white pill,
white pill, and green pill, brown pill. Started off with just 2. It was blue pill and red pill, of course, related to the movie The Matrix. And yeah, then after that came, I think, the black pill, and then after that came the purple pill. The main 4 I discuss is red pill, blue pill, purple pill, and black pill. And but yeah, it's interesting. See, there's another criticism I believe you've had. There's a lot of people in this space, let's say more specifically the black manosphere, and even to an extension, worldwide manosphere. They tend to exhibit a lot of behavior that's inconsistent, contradictory, and or hypocritical. And see, I have a keen ear and a keen eye for that. I mean, most people know me in real life. They know I pay attention to when people say things that are contradictory. And related to that question, here was the thing. Here's show how people are inconsistent. Before I met my wife, I had a number of people in this space that would say to me from time to time, mainly people who didn't care for me, they would say, man, ARC is too old to be out here being a womanizing bachelor. You know, that stuff should end like by the time you're like 45 or 49, man. This dude's like in his 50s, man. Can he find a good woman to settle down and like just be in a long-term relationship with? I mean, what's the dude doing, man? Trying to bang all these young chicks and he's like in his 50s, man. Then when I did turn in my womanizing bachelor card after I met my wife and got engaged, some of them same guys will now criticize me for just opposite. Oh man, what's ARC doing trying to get married like, you know, in like his mid-50s, man? Like, what is that even about, man? Like, who does that, man? Like, you know? And so it just like was like, get the F out of here. It goes with, of course, the classic adage, damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Mm-hmm.
I got criticized in both directions. But yeah, man, I met my wife. She actually started off as a dating coaching client of mine. So we met actually on YouTube. You know, of all the criticisms I may have of YouTube, I have to thank YouTube for connecting me with my wife. That's how I met my wife. She watched one of my videos. She didn't normally watch like, you know, Manosphere oriented or Black YouTube oriented videos, but it just so happened on her main screen, one of my videos came up as a suggested video.
Oh, okay.
Curiosity, she decided to watch it. It was about the pills. We just talked about the pills.
Yeah.
It was a video I did it in December 2018. It's called Red Pill versus Black Pill versus Purple Pill versus whatever. And in parentheses, it says ARC gets hardcore real. And that was the first video she watched of mine. And she became intrigued by me. And first, she hired me as a dating coach. That's what a lot of people don't know about me is that even though my primary demographic is single heterosexual men, I have worked with women and couples from time to time. So I have had female clients, not nearly as regularly as men, but I have had at least a very small percentage of both female clients and married and unmarried couples as clients. Anyway, that's how we met. And then we started cohabitating in October 2019. We got engaged in mid-February of 2020. And then, yeah, some people start saying, I can name some names, but I won't. But some well-known, at least a few well-known black male content groups have said, man, I used to respect ARC as Red Pill, man, but now that he's engaged to be married, he's Purple Pill now. You can't call him Red Pill. He's Purple Pill. And I just feel like I'm not. There's no other way to say it. I'm not. I'm still, not only would I say I'm still Red Pill, I'm still hardcore Red Pill. I'm hardcore Red Pill. So no, I'm not Purple Pill.
No.
Here's where the Purple Pill criticism would be, for the most part, legit. Is if all of a sudden, after I got engaged, I start telling all my male listeners and supporters, hey, you should stop pursuing women for short-term non-monogamous casual sex. You should only be pursuing them to become your long-term girlfriend, your wife, and all you guys should be focused on getting married. If I was sending out that message, then it would be warranted for people to say, oh, ARC done changed. He's Purple Pill now. He used to be Red Pill. He's all about promote. But I never did that. Even though I became engaged and I got married, I never switched up my message in regards. Like to this day, I've never exclusively promoted marriage. I've never been either one. I've never been exclusively pro-marriage, and I've never been exclusively anti-marriage. I'm kind of right dead center in the middle. I'm like, marriage is beneficial for some heterosexual men, but I think some other percentage of heterosexual men should stay as far away from it as possible.
I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
Huh, okay. So it does lead me to another question. So yeah, I'm curious. So I saw where in a recent video you were just talking about Patrick O'Neill, who I know is kind of beloved by a lot of people in the space. Yeah, he's set to be married before he passed away in November 2011, but yeah, a lot of his fans view him as one who was totally against marriage. So why do you think so many men in the red pill community and just the larger manosphere passionately hate the idea of marriage?
Well, first on Patrice O'Neill, see now Patrice O'Neill is a little different than me. Even though a few people try to compare us as being almost the same, but he's a little different. See, Patrice O'Neill at one point in his comedic bits, he actually did come out and specifically say to men, never get married. So that's a difference. If you're on record on a video or an audio saying to guys, never, ever, ever get married, and then you turn around and get engaged, which he did. He was set to be married in December of 2011, but he ended up passing away right after Thanksgiving in 2011. See, that does raise eyebrows, because people can even say, well, dang, Patrice is on record telling men never, ever get married. I got a video where or a podcast, I should say, I listened to, where he specifically told guys never, ever get married. See, I've never done that. There were some guys who thought that I was in the same route, but I've never, ever told guys as a blanket statement, never, ever get married. The most I've ever said, I've said there's some risk involved in getting married, and you need to think about those risks if you're thinking about getting married. But I've never, nobody can say that they have a video record or audio record of me saying never, ever, ever get married. So yeah, I did do a video. Speaking of purple pill, I said, if guys are going to call me purple pill, which again, I think is an invalid label for me. But I said, for argument's sake, if you're going to call me purple pill, then for damn sure you need to call Patrice O'Neill purple pill once he got engaged, if that's going to be your argument. Because he did a total 180. When he was telling guys never, ever get married, then he turned around and got engaged. What was the second part of that question? I forgot.
Second part was, what was it? Oh yeah. So yeah, why do you think a lot of people in the red pill space are passionately hate the idea of marriage? So, I know you hear this a lot in MGTOW spaces.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because plain and simple, a lot of guys view marriage as something that's only beneficial to women.
Mm-hmm.
They think all the laws associated with marriage, and even more so the laws associated with divorce, exclusively favor women. They think if you get married, you're playing into women's objectives, the achievement of their objectives. Yeah, you're helping them achieve it. They're going to automatically have the upper hand in the marriage, and so on and so on. So a lot of guys are against it. You know, other guys, they think, none of these women will ever be romantically, faithfully monogamous enough to maintain a marriage, that they're going to be cheating on them behind their back and whatnot. And so, yeah, you got a lot. Here's my thing. Here's what my thing is and what it's always been. Any guy associated with the Manosphere or the Black Manosphere, if their name is Frank Jones and they say, hey, I'm Frank Jones, and me personally, I feel like marriage is not conducive to my needs and objectives. When I consider all the things that center around marriage, I, Frank Jones, choose not to get married. I have no argument against that whatsoever. Mm-hmm. I don't have any argument against anybody's individual decision not to get married. But using that same example of Frank Jones, let's say Frank Jones tends to take it 5 steps further and say, not only have I chosen not to get married, but I think none of you guys out here should get married, because it's just a wrong decision. It's going to be the most regrettable decision you ever make in your life. All the women out here are unmarriageable. That's what I'm like, okay, you need to shut up. You need to shut up. You're trying to influence all these young, impressionable minds to co-sign with your negative and pessimistic attitude towards marriage. I don't like that at all. Don't like it. A lot of these guys, man, in their 20s, man, they ain't even experienced life. They ain't even experienced enough things to be listening to somebody who's older than them saying that marriage is totally, absolutely detrimental. Here's the thing. I did a show on this on Blog Talk Radio. I asked the question. I said, the question of my episode was, if marriage is so bad, why are there some people who've never had their marriage head towards divorce? And if marriage is so great, why do we have so many divorces? And it made a lot of people at the time go, good question. Because it's the truth. You can't say marriage is bad for everybody, because if that was true, everybody would be headed towards divorce. My mother and father never were headed towards divorce, ever. I would say no less than 2/3 of my closest male friends and high school classmates, college classmates, fraternity brothers are married and have been for 15 plus years. So if marriage was horrible, all my friends would be like, man, this marriage, my older brother been married since 2008. Ain't heard him complain about marriage one time. Not one time. Most guys complain about at least 2 or 3 times a year, minimum. My brother has I've never literally heard my brother complain about marriage, not once. Not once has he come to me and said, bro, I don't know if I should have got married, man. I kind of regret it. Man, marriage, I actually heard him complain more when he was single. My brother used to always complain when starting with his mid to late 30s up until the time he got married, he was always complaining about bachelor life. So, it's an even balance, man. I mean, marriage ain't for everybody. No, here's the thing. There's no one type of relationship, in my strong opinion, that's for everybody. You can never argue that marriage is for everybody. You can never argue that being a womanizing bachelor for the rest of your life is ideal for every heterosexual man. You can never argue that, gay and lesbian lifestyles for everybody. Obviously, that's not. You can never argue that a polygamous marriage is for everybody. Polyamory is for everybody. Anything you can think of, it ain't for everybody. BDSM, which is something I'm into, it ain't for everybody. Different people got different tastes, man.
No, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, I know there's women I know in their 40s and 50s who's like, yeah, marriage wasn't for me, and they don't think anything of it. So I'm curious. This is a question. It's something that always kind of, amazed me. So, when it comes to marriage, I know the Manosphere values traditionalist values that have been vanishing over the past 60 years. So some want women to settle down in their early 20s and ignore the fact that the average age of first marriage for men and women have increased since the 1960s from 21 to 27 and 29 for women and men, respectively. And while delaying marriage until one's early 30s to raise a chance of divorce, it now lowers it. So, given this reality, why is the Manosphere so committed to a bygone era and shame women for not being "quote unquote" traditional anymore?
How much time you got?
I usually just do this for like an hour to an hour 30 minutes. So we still got time.
No, I'll just say this. Yeah, that's an interesting question, because you got a lot of guys in the Manosphere, the Black Manosphere, who on one end, this goes with to me, inconsistent, contradictory criticism, that will fancy themselves as a modern day contemporary thinker. But yet, when it comes to discussing things like marriage and relationships with women, seems like a lot of guys, without only a few of them blatantly admitting it, they want to return to like the 1930s, 1940s, 1950s style marriage. And that's why a lot of the guys exist in the Manosphere. So you got a lot of guys that they see how guys had it back in the day, and they want that. And when I say had it, and I talked about this actually at the second time I spoke at the 21 convention. See, there was a time when if you caught your wife flirting with another guy, you could literally beat the crap out of her. It wasn't called domestic violence. That was almost your right as a husband. You could prevent your wife from going to certain parties and social events and whatnot. You could just take sex from her whenever you're horny, even if she, emphatically told you she wasn't in the mood. You could prevent your wife from working. I mean, I could go down the list. And so a lot of men today feel like, well, man, I want it like them dudes had it 100 years ago, where they just ran the house with an iron fist and could slap their wife around and do whatever. Them days are gone. And I did a video, I think it was in late 2017, that I get one of my first videos. I actually got quite a bit of pushback. It was titled, "We ain't never going back to the 1940s, 1950s, 19s." I said specifically, the women are never going back to that. Men may try to go back to that. Women ain't never going back to how things were in the 1940s, 1950s, 1960s, because they didn't really have no opportunity to do nothing. So that frustrates a lot of guys, honestly.
Yeah.
I heard guys talk about it at both 21 conventions I was a speaker at. I listened to these guys, man, and the undercurrent of a lot of their commentary was, I don't like the freedoms that women have today. I don't like the fact that they can, just go out and get a job when I might want them to stay at home. Certain laws favor them. I can't slap them the crap out of them if I want to. Like, I give you an example. We all saw that Bill Cosby got free. And I love Bill Cosby. I got a lot of love and respect for Bill Cosby. But that said, I'm just going to keep it real because I brought him up on a recent video on my channel. When it comes to drugs and alcohol, man, there's been an evolution between men and women. I've talked about it in relation to myself. I'll give you one example related to me. When I was in college at Indiana University in the early to mid 80s, you could get a woman drunk and then take advantage of her. That wasn't called date rape.
I've heard about that, yeah.
It wasn't called date rape back then. Like in 1982, 1983, 1984, 1985, if there was a woman that came into the Cap House and some of my frat brothers got her drunk and then ran a train on her, that wasn't date rape. I even had a campus police officer at the time, talked about it with me. We were talking, and he said, I forget how we got on the subject, but he said, Alan, man, if the parents of a lot of these women down here knew the real deal, man, Indiana University would have a bad reputation. I said, what you mean? He said, man, a lot of women come to us, the campus police, and file charges of rape. And I said, really? I said, well, why wouldn't they be allowed to charge somebody with rape if they got raped? He said, well, here's the problem. Most of the women who file these charges of rape is with a guy that they know. And I was like, oh. And see, our police chief, they don't consider that rape. Rape is only considered when you're like, assaulted by a stranger. But if you've known the guy for like 2 or 3 weeks or longer, they don't consider that rape. A woman I've collaborated with by the name of Katie Costner, she was actually one of the women who changed that around 1990, 1991. She was on the cover of Time magazine. She actually changed that narrative. She said, no, just because I know a guy, I've known a guy for say 6 months, doesn't mean he can't rape me. So going back to Bill Cosby for a second, see, a lot of these women that came out the woodwork saying that Bill Cosby raped them, they're almost like half right and half wrong. See, in the 1960s, if you gave somebody drugs, alcohol, and you had sex with them, that wasn't rape back then. That was considered normal, acceptable. It might have been, if nothing else, considered a little bit unethical, but it wasn't considered illegal. 60s, 70s, and at least the first 2/3 of the 80s, that wasn't illegal. But then now if any young guy invites a woman to his dormitory room or apartment and gets her sloppy drunk, that's date rape. That's date rape. He 50% chance he going to prison. That's date rape. So anyway, going back to about men's and their frustration, so there's a percentage of men that don't like that. They're like, okay, why did the guys in previous decades get away with getting women drunk and then having sex with them, but my generation don't? Feminism. See how feminism changed things? Now it's date rape. When it used to be in the 1960s, you could give a woman a joint or have her snort cocaine or give her a bottle of vodka and you could take advantage of it with no problem. But now you got all these feminists that says that's now date rape. And man, you got to adjust to the times, man. A boss could grab their secretary's ass. It was considered unethical, but it wasn't no Me Too groping allegation. Now you can't pinch your secretary's ass. She gonna have you in front of the New York Times now.
Mm-hmm.
That's just life.
Yeah, sure. I don't know why we talking about that. Have you ever saw the movie The Shape of Water?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it just reminds me of a scene of I forget who the actor who plays like the manager. He's like having sex with his wife, and it's just you can tell it's just so uncomfortable, but she pretty much just had to deal with it. Mm-hmm. It's like I don't know. I just kind of just reminds me of like how housewives being stuck in like unsatisfactory marriages, whether that was like social or even sexual. In that time period, I think that was based in the 1950s. They were filming it.
Well, so you bring up a good point. There's a woman named Cassie J. You ever heard the name?
Mm-mm.
She did a movie called The Red Pill documentary.
Oh, I saw the documentary. Yeah.
There's a brief scene in her documentary that typifies. See, again, some guys, not all guys, but some guys treat like, as it relates to dating relationships and marriage, that things were better in, say, the 40s and 50s than they are now. But one thing she brings up, she shows this scene from this wedding reception, and this woman is just looking like, oh my God, I got to stay married to this guy. See, man, back in the day, man, a lot of women didn't choose their own husbands. I talk about that in my book, The Beta Male Revolution. Mm-hmm. A lot of women didn't choose their own husbands. Their fathers chose their husbands for them. It was almost close to being like a prearranged marriage. Mm-hmm. And a lot of women were almost forced to marry guys that they weren't physically attracted to, they weren't sexually attracted to, but those guys had good jobs, good careers, they were going to be great financial providers, and their father said, marry this guy. He's going to be a good provider for you and your children. But that's why one of the reasons why a lot of women, when the second wave of feminism happened, why they wanted to earn their own money so they could have sex with the guys they really wanted to have sex with. Mm-hmm. But the problem there is that once women had the freedom to have sex with the men they really wanted to have sex with, they couldn't force those guys to be faithfully monogamous to them.
Yeah.
They'll start hitting it and quitting it, and they didn't like that. So, sometimes you got to watch what you pray for because you just might get it.
Yeah, I think I might make a video about that, like in terms of like the nostalgia about families and sexual relations. Like, how people picture it is not just the reality of how people experience it at the time.
Exactly. I always say if all women enjoyed how things were in the 40s and 50s, why would there ever been the second wave of feminism?
Mm-hmm. No, I definitely agree. That does lead me to another question. I was going to ask another one, but actually I'll jump for a bit. What are your general thoughts about feminism? Some people blame it for being unfair marriage laws. Do you agree with 21 Studio founder Anthony Johnson that feminism is the worst thing to happen to men in the 20th and 21st century? Or do you believe some aspects of feminism have been beneficial to both men and women?
You said, do I agree with Anthony Johnson that feminism is the worst thing to happen?
Yeah, they say it's like the downfall of Western civilization. They're not just talking about the United States, but pretty much all Western countries.
Now, I'll preface my comments. I have a lot of respect for Anthony. He's never said anything disparaging about me. He's always shown me respect. But I'll just say, Anthony knows how I feel because I've been mentioning throughout this conversation. I blew the minds of a lot of people at my second appearance at the 21 convention, because in my speaking engagement, I defended feminism, certain aspects of feminism, not in its entirety, but there were certain tenets and aspects of feminism I defended. And the men were sitting there like, and the women, there was a few women there, they stood up, they gave me a standing ovation. And it's had a lot of it had to do with stuff we've already talked about. Like how men used to be able to get away with domestic abuse, and feminism helped prevent that. There was times when a wealthy guy could just dump his older wife in favor of a younger wife, and that woman would end up damn near homeless, broke and homeless. Mm-hmm. I mean, those are things, man, that needed to be changed, man. But as a black, well, I chuckled a couple minutes ago, man, as a black man, would anybody expect me to say that feminism is the worst thing that happened to men in the 20th century, 21st century, and you black? She did. The fuck? Excuse me for cursing, but no.
Yeah, okay.
No, it ain't. I mean, that's not to say I don't have my credit. Here's my thing about it. My main thing to do with feminism, and people know this from following my channel, I never really so much concentrate on how feminism has hurt us, men, heterosexual men. When I go in on the few times I go in on feminism, I more so talk about how it's hurt women themselves, and they were the ones who put. I'll give you one example of a video I did on my channel, is that, well, it's kind of related to what I just said not too long ago, where women one of the things women wanted was to be able to earn their own money so they could have sex with the guys that they were really genuinely attracted to. Well, the problem is a lot of the guys that most women were genuinely attracted to were guys that were womanizers, guys who were never going to be committed to them, never going to want to be their husband, never going to want to be, help them raise children. So that left a lot of them as single moms with babies out of wedlock. Mm-hmm. So now you have women trying to create laws to almost curtail men's casual sex pursuits. It's like they want to have their cake and eat it too. So it's like, ladies, no, you can't have your cake and eat it too like that. Mm-hmm. You ask for the freedom to choose the man you want, but if you happen to choose the wrong man, meaning the men who you thought your vagina was going to be able to persuade them to put a ring on your finger, but that ring never came, look in the mirror. It's your fault. Yeah. It's your fault. Don't blame us. That's your fault. That's what you wanted. And the appeal of a lot of women's non-sexual attention and companionship is falling like just a stock that's just, bottom out. I mean, so it simplified way women asked for things, they wanted things, and once they got them, they was like, oh snap, I didn't know it was going to be like this. I didn't know guys was going to be hitting it and quitting and pumping and dumping me. I didn't know it was going to be like this. I didn't know the dude was going to be banging me and my sister. I didn't know the dude was going to be getting me pregnant and my next door neighbor.
Yeah, and I remember talking about that economics class, the availability of contraceptive and legalize more liberal laws about abortion. It didn't really give men much of an incentive to stay with a woman, and if she did have a pregnancy, compared to prior to the 70s, where, you got a woman pregnant, you got a shotgun marriage where you just had to marry her. But I mean, nobody does that.
I talk about that debate about revolution. Debate about revolution. Yeah. See, the days of like eloping, shotgun marriages, second wave of feminism combined with the sexual revolution pretty much killed that. Now, I'll tell you the number one area, and I like to oversimplify in oversimplified terms, how you could say second wave feminism, whatever phase of feminism after that, have more or less hurt men. Just like when a lot of aspects of life, like financially, it's been well documented that you have your haves and your have-nots. What I argue in the beta male revolution, and I talk about in some of my videos, is that the second wave feminism combined with the sexual revolution created for men a bunch of sexual haves and have-nots, which relates to a concept known as the 80-20 rule theory, where it's been asserted that only 20% of men in society are pretty much having their way with multiple female sex partners, while 80% of men are either just, in worst case scenario, not really getting no punani, or at minimum, they got to pay for punani or offer and promise long-term monogamy for punani. And so you got some men in today's society that are kicking back with a cigar in their mouth, smiling because they got a Rolodex of about 25 women they could call up and bang on any day of the week and the month. They got it like that. Mm-hmm. Then you got another guy who could be living right down the street from that guy who's masturbating to internet porn every single day and ain't had no real life punani in like 3 years. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you're going to have some guys who are in that second category that are going to be frustrated, and a lot of those guys are going to blame it on feminism.
Oh, yeah. I heard the 80-20 rule. I don't know. Is it that? I mean, I know it comes from like somebody put in the chat, the Pardio principle. Yeah. I mean, I haven't looked into it to see. I know people criticize it. I haven't seen the validity of that. At first, I'm like, that's kind of, some people say 90-10, 95-5.
Always
but that juxtaposition is true, though. There is a guy like that.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no, I said the juxtaposition is true. There certainly are guys who, easily have sexual access to women. There are guys who clearly don't. I mean, I'm not denying that it doesn't exist.
Yeah, I want to clarify, and I always have to clarify this. A lot of people call it the 80-20 rule, but it's actually, the official title is called the 80-20 rule theory. In other words, never been scientifically proven. I first read about it in an article in Esquire magazine when I was actually at Indiana University in Bloomington. There was some psychologist that was talking about it. And so he said it was an assertion. It was a theoretical assertion that a small, basically more so related to casual sex than relationship sex. He basically said in so many words that when it comes to relationship sex, there's not a clear delineation between men. But when it comes to casual sex, he argued that a small percentage of men will be able to get casual sex basically for free, without paying for it, without whining and dining women, without having to spend a lot of time with them non-sexually. And a larger percentage of men, if they want casual sex, they're going to have to pay for it, such as, street prostitute, call girl, escort, or sugar baby or something. And he said, yeah, that's, but again, the key word was theory, 80-20 rule, theory.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's a good point. And appreciate for, Misra? Oh, yeah, $9.99 super chat. I'm proud of you. Thank you. And also appreciate the other super chats I didn't get to. It's got to scroll all the way up to find them. Yeah, there's a question. It's actually related to race, actually. I think it's important. So, yeah, why do you think most Black men view non-Black women as being unmarriageable compared to non-Black women? So do you believe that non-Black women possess behaviors that would make them potentially better wives than Black women? Or do you have any relatives, close friend, or attorney brother who shun Black women in favor of marrying non-Black women? And, this is something that's talked about a lot in the Black sector in the Manosphere here.
Yeah. It's funny. I've noticed this ever since I was in college, again, at Indiana University. So this is before the days of the internet and the Manosphere. When it came to interracial dating, I've always noticed there's basically two types of Black men. There's some Black men, I'll include myself in this first category. There's some Black men that don't have any real animosity towards Black women, but they just want to try to bang every attractive woman they meet. They don't care if she's white, Asian, Hispanic, Middle Eastern. They just trying to bang as many women as they meet, and in some cases they end up marrying a non-Black woman. But they don't really have any animosity towards Black women as a group, per se. And honestly, I've always had more respect for guys in that category. Because again, I'm in that category. Was it? Now, relationship-wise, most of my long-term relationship partners have always been Black women. But for casual sex, I've been all over the place. I've banged. I'm not trying to brag, but I mean, I've banged every woman of probably every race literally on earth, and I'm not even exaggerating. Then you got a second group of guys that gravitate towards white women or Asian women or Hispanic women or whoever else because they've had poor experiences with black women. And so guys in that second category are going to always have, you know, these harsh criticisms of black women and say that they're more unmarriageable. Somebody said Eskimo.
Yeah. I just had to pull it up, maybe laugh.
And yeah, man, I mean, all women, man, the reality is, man, all women got their flaws and weaknesses, man. They might not have the exact same ones. Black women's flaws and weaknesses in many ways are distinctively different than white women's flaws and weaknesses, which may be distinctively different from Asian women's flaws and weaknesses, and so on and so on. But they all have them, man. Like one of the ones I hear a lot about black women is that black women are very argumentative compared to non-black women. That ain't 100% true. White women can argue with the best of them. Asian women can argue with the best. Hispanic women, for damn sure, can argue with the best.
Yeah, I grew up around Puerto Ricans and Dominicans. Trust me, I know.
So, you know, I've heard obesity, that black women have a higher rate of obesity than non-black women. I don't know the exact statistics on that. Let's say that's true. That don't mean that there's not obese white women, Asian women. There might be a higher number, higher percentage of obese black women, but that doesn't mean that there's not. Shoot, man, when I was in high school and college, white dudes, at the risk of generalizing, they used to be the harshest on weight. White dudes was always like, "Oh man, she's a fatty. She's a fatty. She's a land whale." Oh my God, I used to be like, "Dude, man, why y'all so harsh on?" Oh, they were like, "Oh my God, I'd shoot myself in the head before I dated a fat woman, man." So they used to be real. Like, I know some brothers that love big women. I mean, my wife was just talking about that a couple of days ago, man. I used to work at the beach in Gary, Indiana. And me and this guy were talking, and his slender sister walked past. I was like, "Ooh, look at her. She's sexy." And his older brother in his tray, he was like, "No." I was like, "What? What's up?" He said, "She ain't got no meat on her bones. She ain't got no meat. She too skinny." And she was, to me, she was well shaped. Then this real big woman, borderline obese woman, comes walking by. His older brother, he's like, "Nah, that I'm talking about right there. That's what I'm talking about right there. And that's a sexy woman right there." He loves that. Brothers, man, they love big women. So why wouldn't women be motivated to keep their weight on when you get brothers like that dude? He loved BBWs, man. He was like, "Boy, that's a sexy woman. I love all the meat on them bones." So there you go.
Yeah, that's also a larger point too. You know, culturally, you know, what's considered attractive does vary among racial groups too. So, you know, it might, you know, like I mean, I know from experience how white guys will like just lambaste on chubby women, but you know, like a lot of black guys, some who do are kind of chubby chaser, or sometimes, or what's considered like dick to a white guy might be seen as fat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, two things again. I'm loosely generalizing. White guys, they hate overweight women, and another thing they hate is flat chested women. Like, brothers can tolerate flat chested women. White dudes, they're like, if a woman doesn't have a rack, oh my gosh, she could be just thrown off the earth. I need a rack. They funny.
Having lived in like two cities that are like 80% white, I'm just kind of laughing. I'm like, yeah, I heard those kind of conversations.
Yeah, man, they cracked me up. So, but yeah, my point was again that to me, you got the good apples and bad apples in every race. I know from being a dating coach who has clients of every race. You know, my white male clients, they complain about white women. My Asian male clients complain about Asian women. My Hispanic male clients complain about Hispanic women. My Middle Eastern clients complain about Middle Eastern women. across the board.
Oh no, definitely true. And just shout out to B Money, who's been a long supporter of the channel. Respect to ARC and Aaron on the good conversation. I appreciate that.
B Money, what's up, B Money?
Okay, yeah, I have like 2 more questions. I'll ask questions from the audience. I know some people. I've seen 2 people ask like, "What are your thoughts about Kevin Samuels?" I'll say that to the end.
Okay.
So yeah, I've heard some younger men in space say, they listen to younger dating coaches and red pill advisors because they can't like relate to you because you're close to 60 years of age. Some part the ages on you probably heard in the space. And then now that you're married, so what aspect of your advice and commentary do you feel is completely outdated in the 21st century, if any?
None of it.
Oh, okay.
But I'm tired of people saying that.
Mm.
A lot of young guys, particularly as you mentioned, younger dating coaches, have tried to suggest at times that, oh man, y'all don't need to be listening to ARC because he gives a lot of. If I had to call at least one by name, one of the first prominent guys, younger guy at least younger than me, that said that was Alpha Male Strategies. When he first started rising in popularity, he would say, man, ARC, man, he got some of his stuff is worth listening to, but for the most part, his advice is outdated. And then I would challenge him and others. I say, what? Like, okay, I give you one example. Some people try to say being ultra direct with women and being really straightforward with women about your sexual desires, interests, and intentions is outdated in the sense that we now have the Me Too movement era, and you're more likely, to get in trouble if you're too direct with women about your sexual desires, interests, and intentions. That's bullshit. Cursed again. That's my third thing. Excuse me. I've been trying my best,
okay.
But I got a potty mouth. But the reality is this, man. If you really examine the men who have been targets of the Me Too movement, hardly any of them have been guys who were Mode 1. Most of the guys who have been targets of the Me Too movement fall, and I always say, in one of 4 general categories, which has been rapists and date rapists, guys who grope women and or expose their genitalia, guys who've tried to offer women employment offers or job promotions in exchange for sex, and guys who basically toyed with women's emotions and was indirect, tried to basically trick women in the bed. You ain't had no guys who just walked up to a woman and said, hey, I think you're attractive, I think you're sexy, and I think we should hook up sometime in the future and have casual sex, that the next day they were in jail? If so, tell me their names. Tell me their names. So that's bogus. But anyway, going back to the question, a lot of guys are trying to say, oh, ARC, man, he's hitting on 60, man. You can't take his book serious. Then another question I have, if my advice is so outdated, why are you young guys stealing my stuff? I mean, I've had so many young guys 10 years younger than me, 20 years younger than me, 30 years younger than me, maybe even close to 40 years younger than me, just ripping off talking points from the possibility of sex, no free attention, the beta male revolution, Mode 1, and to a far lesser extent, said again. If my stuff is so outdated, why you like, oh, okay, I'll give one more. Some guys say, well, Alan, I like a lot of his advice, but he doesn't realize today's dating scene centers around electronic communication, like, Instagram and OnlyFans and WhatsApp, and communicating through women through electronic apps like Tinder rather than face-to-face and over the phone. And if you read Alan Roger Currie's books, they don't touch on that stuff. Because, man, ultimately you got to get the face-to-face. How you going to bang? You going to bang a woman electronically? Please show me that trick. Ultimately, you got to talk to a woman face-to-face over the phone. And that's what I concentrate on, man. I don't care about no WhatsApp app or whatever you call that shit. Oh, there I go. $5 in the profanity jar. But yeah, man, so that's a weak criticism, man. It's too, as far as I'm concerned, there's too much electronic communication going on between young men and young women, man. I ain't into all that stuff. I say either talk to a woman face-to-face, over the phone. If she ain't willing to talk to you face-to-face over the phone, she ain't really interested in you. She's just looking for flattering attention and entertaining conversation. That's all she's looking for. She ain't looking for what's between your legs.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's definitely a good point. So one of the last questions, and I'll go to the audience. If you're blessed enough to still be around when your son is 18 years old, would you encourage your son to read all of your books, Or would you not want him to, being a way to be exposed to the red pill community and manosphere, assuming that both are still in existence?
My son will probably become a part-time dating coach by the time he's in the 8th grade.
Okay.
I say that half facetiously, but yeah, my son will be well versed in the knowledge, wisdom, and insight contained in my books. He ain't gonna make none of the mistakes I made at an early age. I can guarantee that.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as expose him to the manosphere as a whole, no, I wouldn't want my son listening to half the clowns that are in the manosphere. Y'all can quote me on saying that. Some of these guys is a ridiculous commentary they be having. I wouldn't want my son listening to none of that BS. All that negativity and pessimistic type stuff. Nah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So yeah, like I said, I'll ask questions from the audience.
Okay.
Yes, but there's one question I had to because I saw two people ask it. So, what are your opinions about Kevin Samuels?
Kevin Samuels is doing his thing. He's blown up in a major way. I mean, I put it like this. In terms of the business strategies he's used to cause this channel to explode in popularity, I mean, who can hate on that? You might be able to hate on some stuff he says, some advice he gives, some of his commentary, but I'm talking about strictly from a strategic business standpoint, under the objective of growing his channel, ain't nothing you can criticize that man about. See, where I don't really want to comment, I don't really watch Kevin Samuels like a lot of people do. I've literally only caught, at best, I've caught 3 episodes of Kevin's show since he started, on his rise. Yeah, I've caught probably 3 episodes. And I actually publicly criticized one of those 3 was when he interviewed the aforementioned Alpha Male Strategies. Yeah, when he interviewed Alpha Male Strategies, if people want to hear me criticize him, I had major criticism of that interview. He allowed Alpha Male Strategies to get away with a lot of what's known as revisionist history, man. I mean, AMS was acting like he ain't never initiated no beefs with anybody, ain't never took no jabs at anybody. Like, he's more so been the victim of people attacking him. When that dude, when he was on his rise, all he did was attack people, including myself. He used to always take jabs at me. So I was hot at Kevin for not calling him out on that. I mean, he pretty much stole every major talking point from my book, The Possibility of Sex. And here's the thing, and I've said it publicly before, so I'm going to say it publicly again. Kevin knew all this, man. Kevin used to write me about it. When we were cooler, Kevin used to write me anytime somebody was stealing my talk. He would say, because we're in the same frat, Kappa upside. So when one Kappa is talking to another Kappa, we refer to him as a Noop, which is short for Phi Nu Pi. Kevin used to write me and say, hey, Noop, man, here's a link to a guy that's stealing your talking points. Here's a link to a guy that's basically repeating material from your books without giving you credit. So he was one that used to help me police the stuff, but yet he interviewed AMS and didn't call him out on it at all. Oh man, I wasn't feeling that. I ain't gonna lie. I said it publicly. I wasn't feeling that at all. So that's, if nothing else, that was one thing I was very critical of Kevin about, man. He should have been calling out AMS. Like even O'Shea, who I've had a few differences with. Right after that interview, even O'Shea, he took it down now, but he did a live stream. He had the same criticism of Kevin. He said, man, that was a cool interview, but he said, man, the one criticism I have against Kevin, he didn't call out AMS for stealing a lot of ARC's talking points. He said, I think he should have. He said that in a live stream right after that interview, man. So, yeah, again, but other than that, man, I'll say this. I see why a lot of people are, I understand both factions. I understand the people who love, adore, and support Kevin. I understand why they do. And the people who criticize Kevin, I understand why they do. Because I'll make this one point, then I'll get off Kevin. For some of the people who criticize Kevin, here's one thing I understand why he warrants a lot of criticism. He didn't come into this space doing what he's doing now.
Yeah, it was fragrance and cologne, stuff like that.
Yeah, he was talking about clothes, helping guys dress better, choose better colognes. He wasn't offering no dating and relationship advice. Like, I've been doing this, man, since the 1990s, man. I've been offering dating and relationship advice to men and women. So this was a passion of mine even years before I even got on YouTube, man. Kevin just kind of stumbled on some stuff, man, you know. And for people who criticize him in that regard, I understand that, man, because, you know, there's a lot of guys who've done that. He ain't the only one. I know a lot of guys who now are in the field of offering dating relationships advice that when they first got on YouTube, they were like health and fitness trainers, nutritionists, stuff they was giving advice to do with financial management or whatever else, something that didn't have nothing to do with dating relationships. And then they just all of a sudden transition. You know, as a dating coach who's been doing this for 20 plus years, yeah, I kind of have questions about that. Like, dude, why weren't you doing this 5 years ago if this is a true passion? Why weren't you doing this 10 years ago if it's a true passion? So anyway, I understand both the people who compliment him and support him, and I understand where the criticisms are coming from too.
Okay, that makes sense. And Latoya Brown has a question, but we already actually addressed that. Why do men romanticize the relationship that the grandparents had? And I know, I would definitely recommend you read the book by Stephanie Coos, The Way We Never Were, which examines a lot of the conservative.
Oh, yeah, this is a good book.
Oh, okay, marriage. Yeah, okay. There's people who study the history of like family and marriage. But yeah, I would definitely recommend reading that because it'll definitely dispel a lot of the nostalgia people developed over the years. Here's another question. It said, "Yo, ARC, who are 5 of your favorite authors that have written business books you recommend?"
Business books? Ooh. I don't know if I've read that many business books about, like, say, helping you become an entrepreneur, just a better businessman. Sorry, I would have to marinate on that.
Okay, I think this is probably just a joke. Is there going to be a Mode 1 movie?
No, it ain't a joke. That's been discussed for a while.
Oh, really? Okay, I was kind of
I would say before I die, there will be. I've had people, even some people from Hollywood. I ain't gonna go into details, but people wanted to turn my books into a feature movie.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Okay, that's interesting. And Isaac K, what is ARC's biggest regrets of going into partnership or collaborating with Black Manosphere content creators over the years?
Oh, that's easy. That's easy. Naively thinking that some of these guys genuinely wanted to be my friend. And that's where I got to give credit to my older brother. My older brother, you know, it's great, number one, having an older brother who can sometimes see mistakes you're headed towards before you actually hit them. My brother told me a long time ago, when I first started off as a book author and data coach, he said, bro, I'm going to tell you something. There's going to be a lot of guys who are going to pretend like they genuinely want to be your friend, when in reality, they want to get close to you so they can mooch off of your knowledge, wisdom, insight, and basically, you know, steal your talking points and try to profit off of your knowledge, wisdom, and insight. Think about Ray Kroc in the movie The Founder, how what he did to the McDonald brothers.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, I mean, man, he stole their creation right up from up underneath them, man. He became a billionaire off of something they created. And anyway, man, I've had a lot of guys. I wasn't even limited to just black guys either. I could call names, but for now, I'm gonna shun away from names. But man, I've had at least a dozen or more guys that would come to me basically like, "Oh, Ella, man, I respect you, I love you, stuff, man. You know, and like, you know, I want us to be boys." They act like they want to be friends. When really, I say this: if tomorrow I announced I was going to become a plumber, none of these guys who've been trying to enthusiastically collaborate with me or have in the past would ever pick up the phone and try to call me. They'd be like, Alex the plumber. See, if a guy was a true friend, if I switched jobs to being a plumber, they would still want to stay in contact. There's a lot of opportunities, just like you talking about con artists and grifters. There's a lot of opportunists in this space, man. Again, who will try to act like they really adore you, like as a friend, as a human being, when really they only care about, can you help them grow their channel? Can you help them make more money? And if you can't do one of those things, they really don't want nothing to do with you. And see, I take friendship real. Everybody know me in real life, know I take friendship real serious. I don't like fake friendships, opportunistic friendships, disingenuous friendships. None of that. So, yeah, that's part of my regret, is naively thinking somebody was really my friend when they really weren't.
Okay, I'll probably go 2 more questions, then like wrap this up because like an hour and 30 minutes. So I guess part of all challenging you is tell you, why should men abide by traditional gender roles of being a provider and a protector when women are not traditional anymore and are not abiding by theirs?
Well, really, protector. In a civilized society, why does any man need to be a woman's protector when they can call 911 and get a policeman to come out? That role been done. That role been diminished. I mean, you got some women here who still try to maintain some traditional values. You got a lot of women who don't, but a lot of men aren't traditional.
Yeah.
So I mean, you could administer criticisms on both genders, towards both genders.
Okay, and I'll go to this last question and conclude this. ARC, from your experience, what percentage of the Black Manosphere channels would you consider to be incel channels in all but name? How many of them actually have the relationship they're selling?
You honestly, Isaac, you got groups on both ends. Here's what you got. You got some guys in the Manosphere that will try to act like they've had more success with women than they have in reality. And a guy like me at the age of 58, I can spot guys like that. I'm serious. I can read people very quickly. I brag on that actually in one of my books. I can tell a guy, all I got to do is a combination, look at somebody and listen to them talk for no more than 5 to 10 minutes. I can tell if they've been highly successful with women in their life or if they haven't. So you got a lot of guys that try to act like they give off the impression they've been more successful when they haven't, and they've probably been, to one degree or another, some variation of an incel themselves. Then on the flip side, here's the more interesting. You got some guys that have had a reasonably decent degree of success with women, but for the sake of making money, they'll try to act like they haven't. Seriously, they'll try to act like they've had a lot of heartbreaking and frustrating experiences because they feel like that makes them resonate with their listeners and viewers and supporters. So that the supporters say, God, he's just like me. He's been cheated on just like me. And he's had a woman be argumentative with him and treat him like crap just like me. Let me cash app him $100 because he's one of us. A lot of disingenuous people in this space, man. They ain't real. They, for one thing, man, it's a lot of people. Is Aaron Fountain your real name?
Yeah, that's my name. Yeah, you can Google me. I'm a junior. That's my full legal name.
Because one of the number of times I ruffled some feathers a few months after I got on YouTube, I said, I hear a lot of brothers be talking about, I keep it real. Why ain't you using your real name then? I use not only my real name, I use my real middle name. How many guys do that? My birth certificate name is Alan Roger Currie. That's literally on my birth certificate. How am I supposed to treat you real and you're using some kind of pseudonym, nickname, street name? I don't know where you went to high school. I don't know nothing about you, but I'm supposed to listen to your commentary like it's all credible? Man, give me an effing break. Ain't nothing real about you if you ain't got the balls to use your real name. Don't give me that about, well, I want to maintain some degree of anonymity. Do you work for the CIA or the FBI or something? If you don't, then miss me with that. This is a real brother right here. Real name, everything.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I talked about this with two SYSBM guys, and they just told me they got too much to lose. I mean, that's what they said. So they don't even show their faces. So I don't even know. I never seen how they look like.
Well, here's my thing, man. If you feel like you got too much to lose, say in the way of your career or your finances or something, because it might negatively affect your job, then why are you out here trying to act like you got the balls to defy convention? If you ain't got the balls to use your real name, you really ain't got the balls to be a bold truth teller, man. I'm getting passionate, but man, don't miss me with that, man. You can't be half a gangster. You got to be all the way a gangster or nothing. You know, if you want to be a real true, go down in history as a bold truth teller, give me your damn name, birth certificate name, and face all the consequences that come with that. Or shut up.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I definitely agree. My motto always been like, I don't say anything I wouldn't say in public. That's why I don't mind sharing my real name and identity. I'm like, no, I would, everything I said on this channel, I would say in any group of people. So it doesn't really bother me.
I'll give you a quick example of what I'm talking about to do with me. You know, before I did this full time, I used to do a lot of stuff I'm doing now part time. I used to work, as I mentioned, for IU Northwest in Garrett. And I had the president of the university's assistant come to me. I have this really risque, sexually explicit podcast show called The Erotic Conversationalist. And honestly, probably 3/4 of the women I interviewed, I ended up having them masturbating by the end of the interview, playing with themselves, talking dirty. And I ended up getting a visit from the president of the University of IU Northwest. They call him the chancellor. The assistant came to me and he basically was like, Alan, the chancellor knows about your show, The Erotic Conversationalist. I can't believe you would use your real name associated with that. You had to know that the chancellor was going to find out about that show. How come you didn't use some kind of nickname or pseudonym or something? And he expected me to be all apologetic, like, oh, damn, the chancellor, that's all my fault. Dang, I'm going to maybe have to cancel my show. I looked him dead in the eye. I said, so? He was stunned by it. He's like, that's your reaction? So? I said, so? I said, what? I don't do it while I'm at work. I ain't doing the show on work hours. I do it on my own time. Why does the chancellor care about it? He said, well, he kind of feels like it reflects badly on the university. I mean, Alan, you have to be real. You're talking to women and you're essentially having public phone sex. Don't you understand how that could shed a negative light on the university? I was like, man, if the chancellor got a problem with me, tell him next time to come see me himself. And then a few months later, they fired me. No, they actually didn't fire me. They actually got rid of my program. So I can't say they fired me because they never replaced me with anybody else. They just literally got rid of the whole program. And that was in 2012. And that's when I ended up doing all of this full time. But man, all that to say, man, I wasn't scared to use my real name associated with the erotic conversationalist. My attitude, whatever consequences come. So, because I'm a bold MF.
Okay. Well, I mean, with that said, I definitely appreciate your time you made to actually be here to be interviewed. I appreciate everybody who came. I think that's like the most people I had watching. 100, it jumped to like almost 170. It's like the largest live viewership I've had.
Really?
I'm doing this. Yeah, to my knowledge, it could be the second, but I'm pretty sure it's the highest.
I'm proud of that. Now I saw what your largest, including archive views, was. It looked like you had LAR movement on here.
No, if you're talking about the largest video, that's like the wall. That's just like
the wall, yeah.
Yeah, that's just a compilation.
It has like 9,000 views.
Over 8,000 views.
Over 8,000, okay.
Yeah, it's just evergreen content. So, people watch it pretty much every day. I never made anything that went viral right away. They just gradually accumulating views.
Well, man, I say continue. I know a lot of people don't like you. I know a lot of people come after you. But if you remember a few years ago, the advice I gave you is this. You're entitled to your opinions, like everybody on YouTube is. As long as you're not unfairly disparaging someone, attacking someone in what could be legitimately considered an unfair manner. That's the only time I would have criticism of you myself. I felt like you were going after certain content creators in an unfair manner. But as long as your criticisms are objective and fair, and you're not just creating unnecessary hearsay about anybody, then keep doing your thing, man.
No, yeah, appreciate that too. I won't be doing it for long, but it was good escapism from the pandemic. But everything has to come to an end eventually.
Yes.
Okay. Other than that, like I said, I appreciate everybody coming in, and I hope everybody has a great night. And until then, I'll see you guys later. Farewell.